Walk into an abandoned building in a great game and the environment tells you a story. The layout, the items, the damage, you piece together what happened here without reading a single word. Walk into an abandoned building in a bad game and there's just a terminal with a log entry explaining what happened. One approach makes you feel like a detective, the other makes you feel like you're reading someone's diary. So what separates lore that works from lore that doesn't? Let's reverse engineer it, starting with a developer who understood it at first, then completely messed it up. The games offer the same premise. You're stranded on an alien ocean planet, trying to survive and figure out what happened here. In the first game, you're alone, completely alone. And as you explore, you find abandoned bases scattered across the ocean floor. 3 of them. And just from their locations, floating island, and then deeper caves, then the deepest reef, you understand a story. Someone crashed here before you. They tried to survive on the surface, something attacked them. Then they went deeper for safety, and then even deeper. And when you find that final base, damaged and empty, you realize whatever killed them is still down here. Nobody explained this to you. You just explored, observed, connected the dots. The sequel has the same abandoned bases, the same environmental clues, but this time, your protagonist won't stop talking. You find something mysterious, she comments on it. You enter a new area, she observes out loud. The mystery is still there, you're just not allowed to solve it yourself. The difference? Silence. See, in games, you're not just watching the environment, you're moving through it, making decisions based on what you observe. And the moment a character starts explaining what you're looking at, they're robbing you of discovery. Left 4 Dead 2 gets this. You move through these campaigns, a shopping mall, a carnival, New Orleans during a flood, and nobody stops to explain what happened, but you see it. Abandoned CETA stations, hastily written safe room graffiti, the way infected are dressed tells you who they used to be. Wedding decorations and a flooded shirt, the environment tells you how this outbreak spread and how people try to survive. Your characters comment, but they're reacting in the moment, not lecturing you about lore. Ready or Not does this even better. You're a SWAT team, and every level is a crime scene in progress, a meth lab, a hostage situation, an active shooter. The game never pauses to explain the backstory, but you can piece it together. The layout of the building, the evidence bags you collect, the way suspects behave, you're building the narrative yourself through observation and tactical assessment. The briefing gives you the basics, the environment fills in the rest. But then you have games like Fallout 76 at launch. No NPCs. Every story is told through terminals and holotapes. Cool, invested. Compare that to Fallout New Vegas though. You walk into Vault 11 and nobody's there to explain what happened. You just find voting booths, terminals, a speaker system, and you piece together this nightmare. This vault held elections to decide who dies each year. For years they compiled, until finally they refused. And the Vault's AI's final message reveals they passed the test. They were supposed to refuse from the start. Nobody narrates this. You discover it. The environment told you everything. It was never about having zero dialogue or having no diaries explaining stuff. Mystery requires silence. The moment you start explaining, you stop discovering. There should be balance in that. For rule 2, we're breaking the silence.
Who are you?
Why have you been watching us?
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
That's a real line from Destiny. A character literally tells you she doesn't have time to explain the plot in a story-driven game. And you know what? She's right. Because the actual explanation isn't in the game. It's on a website. A website! In Grimoire cards you have to unlock and then read outside the game entirely. There's this thing some games do where they take their most important lore, the stuff that actually explains the plot, and they bury it in some of the strangest places. If you don't find them, the main story just doesn't make sense. They've improved this, lore tabs are in game now, but the fundamental problem remains. Critical plot points are hidden in item descriptions most players will never read. The campaign assumes you understand who the witness is, what the darkness wants, why the traveler matters. But if you haven't done your homework, you're just shooting aliens because a lady in a triangle told you to. Compare that to Elden Ring though. Elden Ring has item descriptions, ton of them, and yes, they contain lore, deep lore. The entire history of the lands between is in those descriptions if you want it, but here's the difference. You don't need it. You can play the entire game, beat every boss, roll credits, and have a complete experience without reading a single item description. The environmental storytelling, the NPC quests, the boss designs, they tell you enough. But if you're curious, if you want to know why Godwin looks like that, or what the hell happened to Maquella, or who the gloam-eyed queen was, the items are there, waiting, rewarding your curiosity. That's the distinction. Optional depth versus mandatory homework. Kingdom Hearts takes this even further. Critical plot developments happen in handheld games, mobile games, browser games that don't exist anymore. You need to have played titles across 6 different platforms to understand the actual plot. They're actively gatekeeping their own story behind a platform collection achievement. Your core narrative should be comprehensible to someone who just plays the main content. Everything else, the deep lore, the backstory, the world building details, that should be there for the people who want it. Enrichment, not requirement. Outer Wilds does this perfectly. The main loop is clear. You're stuck in a time loop, explore the solar system, figure out why. You can do that. You can finish the game with just that. But every planet has optional text, optional ruins, optional environment details that reveal this tragic stories about the Nomai civilization. You can engage as deeply as you want. The game rewards curiosity without requiring it. But rule 3 is where things get weird. Sometimes the lore is fine, the delivery is fine, everything we've talked about so far, not the problem. It's something completely different. Let me show you what I mean. Rainbow Six Siege launched in 2015 as a grounded tactical shooter. The premise was simple. You're playing as real-world counterterrorism operators. Breach charges, heartbeat sensors, reinforced walls, that kind of gadgets. The kind of gadgets that, could theoretically exist. The lore matched this. Operators had realistic backstories, military backgrounds. The whole thing felt like a Tom Clancy novel, which makes sense, because it literally has his name on it. Then something happened. Slowly, year after year, the gadgets got weirder. Holograms, nanobots that heal bullet wounds, a Korean operator who's invisible to cameras because Korea has good technology? I don't know. And with each new operator, the lore had to bend further to justify these increasingly absurd abilities. And now you've got this tonal nightmare where the game is trying to maintain its realistic tactical shooter identity while also having a tournament storyline with animated cinematics about operator drama. The lore is trying to be serious. The gameplay is arcadey. They don't match. Contrast this with Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is about hunting giant monsters and wearing their skin. That's the gameplay. And you know what the lore is about? The ecology of giant monsters. How they hunt, how they migrate, how they fit into the ecosystem. The lore doesn't try to add some deep conspiracy or chosen one narrative. It just supports what you're already doing. You hunt a Rathalos, you learn Rathalos behaviors. You craft Rathalos armor, you read about Rathalos biology. The world building and the gameplay are the same conversation. It's also why Monster Hunter doesn't really have any big lore community behind it. It's very focused on user experience. Now it's time for my controversial take. Call of Duty Zombies. Hear me out. Zombies started as a joke mode. Nazi zombies, mystery box. That's it. But then it grew. Ancient evil, multiverse time travel, cosmic entities. It got absurdly complex. And you know what? That's fine, because the gameplay was always absurd. You're already in a mode where you're dolphin diving around a theater while a German scientist screams about element 115. The lore leaning into cosmic weirdness? That tracks. The identity was never grounded, so the lore didn't have to be either. This is why Watch Dogs never worked. The game wants to tell you the serious story about surveillance and corporate conspiracy. Very Mr. Robot, very serious. But then the gameplay is goofy hacking puzzles where you raise bowlers to flip cars and cause Michael Bay explosions. The tone of the story and the tone of the gameplay are fighting against each other. You can't have your protagonist brooding about his dead niece in a cutscene and then have him cause a 15-car pileup for fun 5 minutes later. Well, you can. Games do it all the time. It just feels bad. In the end, gameplay and lore have to be coherent. So, we've talked about delivery, we've talked about accessibility, we've talked about coherence. Now, we need to talk about time investment and emotional investment. Borderlands 3 has this problem in the worst way. You meet a character named Ava. She's a young vault hunter, impulsive, wants to prove herself. Fine, standard mentor-student setup. Then her mentor, Maya, a beloved character from Borderlands 2, gets killed. Ava has this big emotional breakdown. The game treats this as a devastating moment. Character grieves. Ava gets this whole arc about dealing with loss and responsibility. But the problem is, I just met these people 20 minutes ago. I didn't see Ava and Maya's relationship develop. I didn't see Ava train. I didn't see why Maya matters to her beyond she's my mentor because the game said so. The game is asking me to feel the weight of this death, but it hasn't put in the work. It hasn't earned this moment. Compare that to Borderlands 2. Handsome Jack is in your ear the entire game, for hours. Joking, threatening, revealing bits of his backstory. You learn about his daughter, his rise to power, his justifications for the horrific things he does. And by the time you confront him, you understand him, and you might even feel a little bad about killing him. That's earned complexity. The game spent 20 hours building this character before asking you to have complicated feelings about him. Or take Call of Duty Zombies. And I know this is a weird example to defend and get back to, but stay with me. It took 15 years and dozens of maps to become the incomprehensible multiverse time travel story it is now. And the community was there for it every step because the complexity grew with the audience's investment. You weren't expected to understand the apothecons and the keepers and the cycle on day one. You discovered it piece by piece over years. You saw Richtofon's purpose, felt awful for Samantha, and you might have even cried when Nikolai had to kill his friends to save the world at the cost of himself. The same way a lot of the most popular zombie fanatics cried in the Tag der Toten ending as well. Or maybe that was just for sweet ad revenue. So there you have it. To write amazing game lore, let the player discover it themselves. Reward curiosity, but make sure the main story is comprehensible without it. Match your gameplay to the lore and earn emotional investment. Now, speaking of curiosity and optional content, if you want to see how games get replayability wrong in similar ways, I broke down those exact mistakes in my video on how not to make games replayable. Click here to watch it.